Hello, and welcome to season three, the recap. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing some of the stats in regards to two of the questions that are discussed and answered within season three, as well as the previous episodes, and just kind of combining those stats, showing you overall what are the percentages of how are people answering these questions? What does this actually mean? What are we supposed to do with this information, these stats and this data? So I'm really excited to share this with you. And then after I share the stats and analytics for season three and then an overall, I'm going to talk a little bit about name abuse and a situation that I encountered pretty recently and the learning moment from that. I thought that was pretty interesting and felt it was interesting enough to share it with you all. And then I also am going to end the episode by sharing some answers on some frequently asked questions. There were just a couple of questions that people had asked me on my Instagram account, and I wanted to answer those for you all here within this episode. So let's get started. All right, so just to give you like a high level recap of some quick statistical information, I have always wanted to do 100 episodes, and right now I have interviewed 72 people and published those interviews with 72 different people. And it should have been 75. I really wanted to do 25 interviews per episode. And when I went back and checked the facts, I have in fact only interviewed 23 people in season one. I interviewed 24 people in season two. And then in season three, I finally hit my actual number that I wanted to reach of 25 people within a single season. The reason why there are not 25 people in season one and season two is because I added in a few extra episodes that actually weren't interviews with other people. And you can feel free to scroll through and check those out. I think one of them is like a little bit more explaining why I'm doing the podcast and a few other episodes, including the other stats results for season one and season two. So that is why we have a total of 72 people so far in our grand totals when I'm giving you this information. But in season three, we had a total of 16 females and 9 males. I've never really planned it out in terms of who's going to be next. I just like, if I interview somebody, then I put them on the schedule and that's how I publish it for the most part. And I'm upset that I didn't have it be equally female and male this time, but it wasn't too bad, I will say. 16 females versus 9 males. It's not that different. And I really don't think it makes a difference. I do just like to disclose that information in case you were curious. And I'm only going to reveal the stats for question one and question seven because I believe that these are probably the most impactful in terms of analyzing. And I'm actually going to be discussing these two questions and the results of these two questions in my live presentation that I'm giving on May 1st, downtown Columbus, Ohio. I talked about this a little bit briefly in my episode with my friend Erin a couple episodes ago, but just wanted to kind of give a little plug for that in case you want to come see me live and listen to me give a very fast, quick, it's 5 minutes. It's a very short talk, but there's going to be a lot of amazing speakers there. I'm really excited to hear the other speakers. I'm sure that their topics are going to be really mind-blowing as well. And the event is called Disrupt HR. I have a link in my Instagram account profile. So if you want to purchase tickets, then feel free to hop on Instagram and go check that out. Or I'm also sharing that information on LinkedIn. If we're connected, it'll be there as well. So, question one is, do you know the meaning of your name? And I always find it fascinating when people say that they don't know. I think it is just mind-blowing to me. I think mostly because if you're an adult and you've had your name for at least 2 decades, I feel like, I don't know, the question in my mind is why wouldn't you look up your name? Like, why wouldn't you want to know what it means? It just kind of baffles me, and not in a negative way. I'm very just like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing that you don't know. And then it makes it even more exciting for me to share it with people and then to see them like light up or just have this or aha moment whenever they find out the meaning of their name. Or if they do know it, I like it when you can tell that somebody has a sense of pride in knowing that they know the meaning of their name, and if you know it, then they're like, "Oh, like that's impressive," you know? So I think this question, I'm glad it's my first question on my podcast episodes. And for season 3, all of the 25 participants, they answered this question, and 3 of the men said that yes, they knew the meaning of their name. 6 did not know the meaning of their name. So more men did not know. 5 women said that they did know the meaning of their name. 11 women did not know the meaning of their name. So still, the stats are pretty high on people not knowing the meaning of their name in season 3. So for question number 1, in season 1, 22% of the 23 participants said that they did not know what their name meant. In season 2, it jumped up to 38%. And then now in season 3, it's almost skyrocketed to 68%, which averaged around 42% for the entire 72 people not knowing what their name meant. And then question 7, which is, do you think the meaning of your name has relevance on the way that you act or the way that you see the world around you? 8 men said yes, only 1 said no. And then 13 females said yes, 3 said no. So a huge majority of those 25 people said yes. They thought the meaning of their name has relevance on the way that they act or the way that they see the world around them. So if we're talking overall grand total average, season 1 had 78% that said yes, it has relevance. Season 2 had 92% that said yes, and season 3 had 84% that said yes. So a grand total average of 85% of all my participants think that the meaning of their name has relevance on the way they act or the way they see the world around them. So, what does this really mean? And why should you even care? This clearly means that the meaning of someone's name is significant. That's why I think that it matters. The numbers don't lie, but remember, it's pretty complex. There are different names with different meanings and different beliefs. My participant count is not that huge. I mean, we're talking under 100 people, around 70, yeah. So 72 people total, which I want to get more. Trust me, I want to get more. 72 is a chunk, I would say. I wish I had thousands. That would help us understand the data even better. But I think that if we're putting a microscope on it and we're just analyzing what these answers are, I mean, these are facts. And the data is coming from other people's answers who are volunteering to provide this information. Nobody is getting paid. And I think that we can actually do something with this information. Generally, I do believe that it's situational. And I think that just talking about onomatology, like talking about hey, do you know what your name means? And just having a conversation around it, it helps like the idea and this conversation topic helps provide a way to start a conversation that can trigger a connection to another person. And I think a lot of people, including myself, are looking for real connection, authentic and genuine connection with other people who see us and hear us as we are. And not just at the surface, but like in a respectful and meaningful way. I believe that that's one of the reasons humans were created to have community and connection. And so I'm just trying to bring another light on a way that you can do this that's not awkward and that makes it a little bit easier. Because I feel as though growing up, I've always been kind of socially awkward. I don't know, maybe my parents, maybe they wouldn't agree with me. I know that my mom, I've asked her this, and she said that when I was a little girl, I never knew a stranger, and every single old person that I would see, like at church or wherever, I would call them like my grandparent. Like I, I guess, I've always been not so shy, but I have felt like I was shy, even though maybe I don't appear to be shy. I feel internally like I've always been kind of like an outsider or just, very much trying to fit in, but I've never felt like I felt fit in anywhere. And this conversation topic has really helped me in terms of just not feeling that emotion and not feeling awkward and trying to just have a neutral topic that I can introduce to somebody, and it's actually really neat to see somebody's face light up when I ask them, "Hey, like, you know, do you know what your name means?" And or I know what your name means, and then they kind of light up, and it's a really neat experience. And I just encourage you to think a little bit more about it because I think that it can have a positive impact in somebody's life. I don't know what kind of impact it can have, but I think it's a positive one. So that's another reason why I talk about it and I have a passion for it. And I get excited talking to people about it and learning more about it because especially in this last season, I think season 3 was probably one of the most impactful seasons for me because I branched out of my comfort zone and I asked people who I really didn't know, "Hey, do you want to be a part of my podcast?" And there were a couple names that I was very nervous about interviewing because when I looked at the meaning, it's, out there. But I really enjoyed those the most because it challenged me to go deeper. It challenged me to look it up and like look it up in multiple ways, look up the meaning. And so I encourage you with anything in life, if something seems somewhat intimidating or confusing or scary or out of your league, I fully encourage you to embrace that. Go for it. You won't regret it because in the end you're going to feel blessed that you were challenged by it. I mean, that's how I feel at least. And then so let's answer a couple questions that I got from Instagram. One was, what is the most downloaded or listened to episode on your entire podcast so far? Did it come from a common name or a more unique name? And I will say this, I have an app on my phone. It's Buzzsprout. That's the software that I upload my podcasts to, and then it gets distributed onto podcasts everywhere available, like Spotify and Apple. And the only thing that I can see is downloaded episodes. I can't see if somebody just clicked on it and listened to it like halfway through. I can only see if somebody downloaded it. And so I will say this, this podcast has been going since June of last year. So it's almost a year now. And the most downloaded episode is, of course, the first episode, which is my introduction and purpose. And I think it's just because it's been out there for so long. But if you want to know the most downloaded episode regarding a specific name, that was in fact my episode, My Name Jama, which obviously isn't a common name. And if you take me out of the equation altogether, the episode with the most downloaded name after that is the name Steven. That is the highest downloaded episode of all time. If you exclude myself, Steven, I don't think is a very unique name. I think it's pretty common. But I will say this, Steven was one of my first participants too. It's also been out there for longer than the other episodes. But I'm just giving you the facts and I'm answering the question. So that is the answer. And then the other question is, what are the top three countries outside of the US that listen to your podcast? And so the top three that have downloaded the most episodes on my podcast outside of the US are France coming in as number one, which I'm completely shocked about, and Canada being second, and then Luxembourg being third. So if you are listening to this and you are in France, Canada, or Luxembourg, I just want to say thank you. I'm honored to be able to be something that you want to listen to in a different country. I'm so glad that this podcast is being put out there and reached by people all over the world. And I think that that's such a neat thing. And I'm honored and humbled by it and just really grateful. So thank you. And now I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and in this episode talking about a situation that happened to me regarding my name and my image pretty recently. And I want to bring it up because I think, first of all, it's important. It's important to me, and I think it's important for other people to hear it because I use this situation as an opportunity to teach my son a lesson. Because whenever I come across something that I am like, wow, this was a learning moment, I try to share it with my kids. 100%. Because I wish that my parents would have been like that with me a little bit more when I was growing up. I wish that they would have been more communicative and vocal and detailed and talking to me and sharing everything with me. That wasn't the case for me growing up, but that's okay. I'm here and I've made it to where I am, so all good. But I have the capacity and the control to raise my kids the way that I want to. And I always try to over communicate with my kids and I share with them any kind of lessons that they can learn right now instead of learning them as an adult and, in a very hard way. So the situation was this. So of course, earlier in this episode, I talked about how I'm speaking at an event in May. And so there has been some promotion about this on LinkedIn. And so there were just two posts that were recently put out there that were highlighting me specifically as a speaker with the information. And of course, I was really grateful that these posts went out. However, the image that was shared was not the image that I gave them in terms of promotional information because when you first apply to this and if you make it, they ask for a headshot and the headshot that I gave them, it did not match the image that was shared on social media. It actually looked like it had been run through an AI generator, and one of my eyes was blue and like distorted. And obviously, if you've seen me, I have very dark brown eyes. And then my name at the bottom of my image, it was cut off so that the last letter of my last name was not visible. So it was showing a completely different and wrong name. So when I saw these two posts, I typically don't like confrontation. And I was thinking about just brushing it off and liking it and saying thanks for sharing. But I thought if this was a friend of mine, if this was a family member of mine, and I saw that like their actual eye color had changed and their name was not correct on a pretty big promotional post on social media that's basically there forever unless they take it down, I would want them to speak up about it. And I think the most important thing is how you speak up about it, the manner in which you do. So I decided to go ahead and send a private message to both of the people who posted that image of me. And I just said, look, like I started out saying, thank you so much for sharing this information. I truly appreciate you pushing this out there. However, my image is distorted. I don't have blue eyes, and one of them is showing as blue. And then I also said that part of my last name was missing. And it's important because if my image is distorted and my name is wrong, and my speech is all about names, I just thought it was really unfair for that to be shared. And so I let them know that in a really respectful way. And I was very polite about it. And I just let them be aware of the situation. And I said, I'm happy to provide, I wanted to actually help them even. I said, I'm happy to provide a different image if the one that I gave you didn't work properly. And then I got a response back really fast and they took it down immediately and then they replaced it with the correct image and my full name. So I'm really thankful that that happened. I mean, at first I'm like, this is just par for my life because I feel like there's a lot of things that happen to me that, in terms of, I think the majority of what I've experienced in life is people misunderstanding me. I think I have been misunderstood a lot in my life. And a lot of it has to do with communication. And this particular example was just a really great way for me to not only speak up for myself, but also to teach a lesson to my son that if your name is ever misspelled or abused or, misconstrued, if your image is also distorted or misrepresented, I expect my children, I expect whoever that happens to speak up about it. It represents you. It represents you as a person. It represents everything that, is put out there about yourself because technically that's kind of like a first impression of yourself put out there if nobody knows you on social media. And it's important. I think that if your name is ever mispronounced or abused or misconstrued anyway, whether it be verbally or on social media, I think you have a right to stand up for yourself. 100%. As long as you are polite about it and cordial and even professional about it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that for standing up for making sure that your name is spelled correctly or pronounced correctly. I think you don't want to be combative about it because then obviously you could have an argument or, something negative in terms of an experience. But if we're all like polite towards each other and kind and show compassion and try to see the other side and have understanding, I think it's 100% valid for you to speak up and say something and make a change about it. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And so I hope that you enjoyed this episode and I hope that you go back and listen to other names. I've already started season 1 with Cindy, so that has been published, and I have one more coming up next week with Haley, and then I don't have any more participants. So please feel free to reach out to me if you would like to explore the meaning of your name and have a 15 to 20-minute conversation answering these 8 questions that I ask each of my participants. I would love to explore other unique names or even common names. So feel free to reach out to me. And again, thanks so much for listening.